you guys, we made it. It's 2024, a new year, a new chance for opportunity and growth, etc. But you are on this channel because you're curious about real estate in Austin, Texas, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The housing market in Austin has changed so much over the last year and a half. I thought it would be a very good idea to do an updated video where I go over what the home buying process looks like in 2024. I've done other videos like this where I talk about semi-market updates as well as what it looks like to buy a home in that particular market. I've usually done those videos when the market is a lot more competitive and a lot more intricate, and there's just a lot more nuanced things that you need to know for buying a home. So I wanted to make another one in real time for you today for 2024. If you're wanting to buy a home in Austin or actually anywhere in Texas in 2024, make sure to watch this all the way to the end because I'm gonna go through the entire process from start to finish. And whatever is applicable in the Austin housing market is going to be basically the same in any other part of Texas. So if you're ready, let's go after I introduce myself. Hi guys, I'm Daphne Quay, your boss lady realtor here in Austin, Texas. I work with people from all over the world and all over the country that are looking to buy a home in Austin or sell a home in Austin. If you are thinking about making a move, contact me. My contact information is in the description below. Also, you can set up a direct one-on-one Zoom call with me, and the link to do so is also in the description below. So with that, let's begin. Step one in buying a home in 2024 in Austin or pretty much anywhere else in Texas really, is going to be talking to a lender or a bank. I'm personally a really big fan of private lenders as well as credit unions. I tend to stay away from the bigger banks just because there tend to be a lot more moving pieces and sometimes the process could take a little bit longer, can be a bit more cumbersome. As a consumer though, you have every right to choose absolutely any lender or any bank that you want to work with. If you need recommendations for a lender or a bank, leave a comment. I have a few that are really fantastic and that can help answer all of your questions. The reason it's so important to talk to a lender before you start the actual process of buying a home is because they're going to tell you exactly what price range you need to be looking in. Even if you're not looking to buy a home for another 4 to 6 months, it's really good to connect with them soon-ish, so then that way they can go over what your financial situation is or if there's anything on your credit that might need to be addressed before purchasing a home. Step number 2 is talk to a realtor. Talking to a realtor, whether it be me or any other knowledgeable agent, is going to be super helpful for several reasons. Once you have talked to your lender, you're going to have an idea of what price range you need to be in. Once you know your price range, you can talk to your realtor about the criteria of the home that you are looking for. That could be criteria like the schools that the home is zoned for, the size of the home, style, and the location. However, price range is going to have a lot to do with the final decision. So once we know your price range, talk to a realtor, share your criteria, and share the price range that you need to be in because different neighborhoods and different price ranges are gonna offer different things, of course. Also, another tip, when you're speaking to a realtor, I want to make sure that you feel like you're being listened to and that your criteria and your questions are being taken into account. Every now and then, I'll talk to clients that will mention that they were talking to another agent and they felt like they were being pushed to make a decision, or maybe they weren't being listened to fully. If you have that feeling, follow that, whoever that might be with. Ultimately, you should be working with someone that helps educate you, helps you feel confident, that helps you feel excited about the home buying process. Point number 3 is going to be narrowing in on the criteria and priorities for this next home or this home that you're going to purchase. So this is going to be things like location and commute. How far are you going to be from work? Are you going into work? Do you work from home? How long of a commute do you want? Also, how far do you want to be from the things that you like to do? Do you like to go on hikes? Do you need to be close to a dog park? Is that important? How far do you want to be from your kids' elementary school? Do you go to the gym? Do you want a short commute? Do you mind driving a little bit longer? All these things are really important to consider, of course, when we are looking at a home. Other things that I think are pretty obvious that people focus on are, of course, going to be price range. This kind of ties into the second point that I talked about. But of course, different price ranges are going to put you in different neighborhoods. Style of home, of course, is going to be a really big one. We have several suburbs that have a lot of master planned communities where the homes, I would say, are cookie cutter. They all kind of look the same. But if you want that style because it's consistent, it's easy to maintain, it's probably going to be newer, then it's important to keep that in mind versus somebody that might want something with more character and a little bit more individuality and uniqueness to it. I've got a client that just bought, for instance, a 55-acre ranch, and the home is completely unique. I've not seen anything like it, and the land is absolutely beautiful and open and also private for them. So there's different styles, of course, depending on what is going to be important for you. Another thing to consider for point number 3 is, what is your goal with this home? Is this a home that you're going to be in for the next 3 years? Is this something that you're going to be in for like 5 to 10 years? Are you raising your family here? Or is this a home that you're potentially going to retire in? All of these are items that should help us put together our priority list. Once we've gone through all of that, then we can jump right on down to point number 4, which is looking at homes. When I'm working with a new client who's buying a home, we have several conversations about all of these things and what they're looking for, their timelines, price ranges, style, all of that. And then I will put together a list of homes that loosely meet their criteria and send it to them to see what they think. I usually ask for feedback. They'll send me their thoughts, and then they'll usually send me a handful of homes that they've seen online that they like. And we just go back and forth like that until we have a list of about 5 or 6 homes that we want to go look at. I also just said that I send a list of homes that loosely meet their criteria. I think the statistic is that you will typically get 80 to about 85% of all of the criteria that you have for a home. So we're always making some sort of compromise, whether it be something bigger or something very minor, but it's just a reminder, most people don't get 110% of what they're looking for in a home. It's just important to go into that with a flexible mindset and honestly realistic expectations. Adding to point number 4, when we are out looking at homes, I really aim to point out items that could potentially be big items that come up in an inspection. I think a lot of times when I'm working with home buyers, whether they've bought a home in the past or not, they get very wrapped up in the moment in the process of looking at homes that a lot of times they don't see the imperfections, or sometimes they don't know. So while somebody's looking at how wonderful and big the kitchen might be, I try to point out that the AC is like 25 years old, right? Or like that the roof might need to be replaced. These are all items that we try to look at when we are looking at homes. At least I do the best I can, because I'm not a contractor and I'm not an inspector, but I've remodeled enough homes and I've seen enough inspection reports that I know what could potentially come up. At least if we're looking at homes together, that's something that's going to happen. Just be ready. All right, point number 5. This is when it becomes more real and more exciting. This is when we negotiate. So let's say we are out looking at homes, you find the one you love, and you want to go make an offer. The first thing that I do is I call the selling agent to find out what I can find out about the sellers and their situation, or even the home situation. We are still very much in a buyer's market. So if a home has been on the market for like 6 or 7 months, I want to find out everything I can about that particular home and its history or situation. Sometimes the selling realtor doesn't want to tell me anything, and they're very tight-lipped. And sometimes they're an open book, which actually makes negotiating a lot easier. Whatever I can find out, I definitely will. And then that is my job to report that back to my clients or my home buyer. Once we have information, we also look at comparable homes to see what similar homes in the neighborhood are selling for. So comparable homes with the information that we have, we put them together, and then we decide what we want our offer to be. Once we decide what we want that offer to be, we put together literally the offer documents and send them your way for digital signatures. They come back to us, and then we send them to the selling party. Once the selling party receives our offer, they will review it, and of course they'll talk about it. Having been on the selling side as much as I have been on the buying side, usually we can expect to hear back some sort of response on our offer when we're buyers within about half a day to a day or so. I will say this has happened a few times when we make an offer on a home and the sellers feel like it's too low. They just don't respond for a couple days, because I think sometimes they just get frustrated that we are in such a strong buyer's market that we're wanting to make more money. So a lot of times I'll tell my clients, if we're making an offer on a home that's been on the market for a while and we're offering low, just be patient, hold on, let's see, let's see what they come back with before we either move on or want to make a second offer. So I think patience is very important in this market. Okay, so now all the negotiating is done and we are officially under contract. Going under contract means that you as the buyer have signed the purchase agreement, and so has the seller. So everyone's in agreement, we've got signed documents, and we're under contract. Okay, so this rolls us into steps 7 and 8. This next point is really important, so please listen and take notes. In Texas, when you are buying a home, as a buyer, of course, you're required to turn in 2 checks within 72 hours of going under contract. The clock starts ticking the day after. So let's say you signed the contract for your new home on a Saturday. Sunday is when the clock starts ticking. The first check that you turn in is called earnest money. Earnest money is 1% of the sales price, and that goes to the title company and they hold on to that until closing. So for this example, let's say you're buying an $800,000 home. Your earnest money would be, say it with me, $8,000. So the $8,000 goes to the title company and they just hang on to that. The second check that you are turning in is called option money. Option money is money that technically goes to the seller. You are buying, it can be anywhere from 5 to 7 days, an option period, which allows you to do your inspections and any further negotiation if necessary. Usually an option period costs anywhere from about $300 to $600 depending on a few things, but for this example, let's say your option period is $500 and that is hanging out with the seller. During those 7 days, you can walk away from the contract for any reason. It could be that you just had a change of heart and maybe there's a different home that you want to pursue, or maybe something came up in the inspection and the seller isn't cooperating. You can walk away from the contract during that 7-day time period and get your earnest money, your $8,000 back, but the seller gets to keep that $500. Now, if everything moves forward as planned and smoothly and you end up closing, then both that earnest and that option money are credited back to you either towards your down payment or in the form of closing costs on the day of closing. You don't get a check back with that money, it's just credited to you by the lender, so you end up bringing a smaller sum of money as your down payment or closing costs on the day of closing. I hope that portion made sense. It's very Texas specific, it's kind of weird. If you have more questions about how the earnest or the option money work, leave a comment down there. Step number 8 is the inspection, which happens during your option period. I'm not gonna get too in the weeds about this because this could go one of many, many ways. We kind of already covered what happens during your inspection and the option period, but basically you as the buyer are responsible to set up the inspection. There's several inspector recommendations that I can make. The inspector's job is literally to check everything. They'll check the roof, they'll check the foundation, they check structure, electrical, plumbing, and just a ton of other stuff as well. So ultimately we end up getting a full report. I've seen inspection reports from as short as 20 pages for a brand new little tiny condo all the way to like 60, 65 pages or so for a home that might have a few more deficiencies. Once we get that report back, we talk about what the main items are going to be, and what really needs to be addressed. From there, we decide how we're going to present these items and move forward with the selling party. Whether we are going to ask the seller to give us a credit so that you can take care of these repair items after closing, or if we're going to ask the seller to make these repairs themselves. Personally, I always like to ask for credit because I want to make sure that you guys know who is doing the work and that it is done correctly. One of the last hurdles that we have when buying a home, if you are financing your home purchase, is an appraisal. An appraisal is basically a third party sent by the lender or the bank to look at the home and make sure that it is worth the money that you are paying for it. So the appraiser goes and takes a look at the home. They look at comparable homes in the area that have sold within the last, I want to say the last year. I'm not an appraiser, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And then they want to make sure that the price that you are paying is appropriate. So for instance, let's say you're buying this $800,000 home. The appraiser goes out and takes a look at the home. One of 3 things can happen. He takes a look at everything and he sends his report back and basically he says, yes, your house is worth $800,000, good to go. Then we can usually close within a week or so of receiving that appraisal. Nothing happens, nothing changes, it's smooth sailing from there. The second thing that can happen, which would be ideal, is that the appraiser goes out and looks at the home and says, this house is worth more. Now, again, for this example, our contracted price is $800,000, but let's say the appraiser says it's worth $820,000. That's awesome. That means you've got $20,000 in equity, nothing changes in the contract, and we continue to roll down the river. The last thing that can happen, which doesn't really happen anymore, thank goodness, this hasn't happened since like mid-2022 for the most part, is that the appraisal can come in lower. So again, you've got this $800,000 home, the appraiser goes and takes a look and he's like, nah, this house is worth $750,000. So one of 3 things can happen there. And I am getting into the weeds here, but I want you to know what the steps are and what to expect. Worst case, just in case. So you've got your $800,000 home. It comes in at $750,000 appraised value. And now we have three options. We can try to renegotiate the price with the seller, which in this market, we are usually able to do. Though this whole thing doesn't really happen in this market, luckily. The second thing that you can do is if the seller doesn't want to renegotiate the price, you can actually walk away from the contract within a certain amount of time and get your earnest money, your $8,000, back before closing. The last thing that you could do, which I don't like to do and I don't recommend anybody do in this market, is you as the buyer pay the difference. So in this example, it would be a whopping $50,000 that you'd have to show up with out of pocket to buy this home. We don't do that anymore. We're not about that lifestyle these days. Those days are long gone. People were actually doing that in 2021 and 2022. My home buyers literally had an extra $100,000 just sitting there in case their appraisal came in short. That is bananas. I'm so happy those days are over. Let's celebrate that they're done. Step number 10 is the final walkthrough. So usually a day or two before we go to closing, we will have our final walkthrough where we literally go to the house and we take a look to make sure it's in the same condition, if not better, than how it was when we last saw it. We want to check for things like holes in the walls, scratches, any damage to the floor, people living there that shouldn't be living there, just junk. We want to make sure that the home is clean and ready to go. I'd say 95% of the time, the homes are in really good condition and everything is absolutely fine. However, on that off chance that you fall into that 5 percentile, we want to see what's going on with it and make sure that the seller has it addressed before we go to closing. Step 11, closing day. Closing day is the best. Everybody's super excited. It's my favorite because my clients are so happy and it's such a celebration for everyone. It's just lovely all around. When we go to closing, it is normally at the title company. Every now and then I do have clients that live out of state, so we have to send them a notary with their documents to sign at home and then they'll get sent back to Texas, which is absolutely fine. It's actually a very efficient way to do it. It's not as fun, but it's a really efficient way to do your closing if you live out of state. But if you're in town, if you're in Austin, we will go to the title company. I always recommend we schedule our closing for earlier in the morning, if at all possible, anywhere between like 9, maybe 11 in the morning. It takes about an hour. You'll sign all your documents, and then we wait about another hour for the funding to go through. That means the lender sends their money to the title company sends the money to the seller, and then we get the house keys, and you usually have access to your new home same day. Doesn't plan you should move into it that day because you never know, there could be hiccups. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. Closing day usually takes about an hour, if not less, and you just have to sign a ton of documents and then you're done. And I feel like lately all my clients finish signing and then they're like, oh, that's it? And that's it. And then we take pictures outside the title company with a big house key and we celebrate. And that's it. That is the process of buying a home in 2024. The biggest difference for the last couple years is that we have more flexibility in using different types of loan programs, which I could do a different video about altogether, as well as shortages in appraisals that basically doesn't exist anymore. So you can generally expect to come to closing with just your down payment and closing costs, unless we negotiate closing costs for you. And again, I could do another video about that too. Anyway, I know that was a lot of information for you. So if you watch this video all the way through, thank you, and congratulations. You are now a lot more educated on the process of buying a home in Austin or in Texas in 2024. If you guys are thinking about making a move or you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the description below. And you can even set up a direct one-on-one Zoom call with me to get further responses and answers to your questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Daphne Quay, your boss, Lady Realtor. Bye. Hiya.